empty nesters make up a huge portion of the marketplace. We are now, like I said, seeing them come back. This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy, giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate. We cover market trends, news, and give you the honest answers that will keep you ahead of the real estate game. So today we are talking about a big market that has been emerging, and it's coming back more and more each and every week, I feel, and that is the empty nester markets. Empty nesters. What are empty nesters? Empty nesters are people who are living in the suburbs, have a big monstrosity of a house. They have older kids. Their kids have moved out, went to college, maybe came back and then got their own place. And the parents are sitting on these 3,000 to 8,000 plus square foot homes. And there's only them and their husband or husband and wife, just two people. And they're like, we don't need this much space. So they're cashing out in the suburbs and buying places either downtown or out of state. And we're starting to see the empty nester clientele come back. So what we're talking about today is getting into a little bit more details about what's going on with these empty nesters. So does Chicago get a lot of empty nester buyers? Yeah, we get a ton of them. We get a ton of people coming from North Shore specifically and like Hinsdale type area. These are people who right now know the market in the burbs is kind of fictitious, and they always get like maybe about a place that's like 2,000-ish square feet down here, and then another place in like Florida, Arizona. What kind of empty nester buyer scenarios do you see often? Just that. And you know what? The biggest problem with empty nesters for everybody listening to this that is thinking about downsizing is you think you need like so much space. And I keep reminding people that it's just the two of you guys. And I understand that you've had 5,000 square feet, but you've also had 4 other humans on top of that living there. So now there's just 2. So you could easily survive in 2,000 square feet. But, you know, the kind of people that we're seeing is mostly just older clientele, cashing out, moving downtown. What areas are they mostly looking in? Almost all of them look in high rises. They do not just buy a place in Chicago when they're doing empty nesters. They're usually buying a place here and then a place in warmer climate. The reason that they buy mostly high rises, they want to be able to close their door and not worry about it because they may only be here 4 to 6 months of the year. So if you're buying in like a walk-up or a single-family house, you have to put a lot of maintenance into it. The less maintenance, the better. Also, they want walkability. Walkability is something we haven't talked about for almost 3 years. Believe it or not, people like to walk out their door and go to restaurants and bars. Maybe go to a Babette's Steakhouse or something like that, you know? But people want to try to see, you know, be around the action. They don't want to, they're not moving downtown to then get in a cab to drive 20 minutes, okay? The point of this is to have less things to worry about, okay, which is what high-rises do. You have no maintenance, and be around the action. What areas are, what are the biggest wish list items for empty nesters? Honestly, a lot of them want no maintenance, okay? They want storage. Storage is big. Then the third thing they want is storage. Then the fourth thing they want is square footage, okay? So these people, empty nesters out there listening, you have to remember, you're changing these people's mindset. It could have been 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years they've been living in a 7,000 square foot house. And now we have to tell them that, hey, you're now going to be living in 2,000 square feet, and there's only 14 closets total in this place. And they're telling me, well, they have 14 closets, you know, on one floor of their house, and they have 17 floors or something crazy like that. So the biggest thing that I always have to tell them is like, yes, you won't have as much closet space. Yes, you won't have as much square footage, but you'll have also a heck of a lot less maintenance. So again, maintenance. They want that carefree lifestyle where they have door staffs, people getting their packages for them, you know, not having to pay as many bills. So assessments include like pretty much everything. They just kind of want to be able to close the door and not worry about the property. And that's why they typically target high rises in the heart of the city. And that's one of the main reasons why the heart of the city has been struggling, because empty nesters make up a huge portion of the marketplace. We are now, like I said, seeing them come back. Are empty nesters still buying, or are they renting more now? They're buying. Most people that are empty nesters have the mindset. They're typically, again, older, and older people have more of a buy mindset, not a rent mindset. And we are seeing that pour back. I would say that's one of the biggest markets I see coming back that's going to help change the market. The more people cash out in the burbs, the more nervous people get about the suburbs slowing down, the better the heart of the downtown market's going to get. Because there's a lot of people who are on the fence about coming downtown. And one of the biggest problems that the downtown market has had with the empty nester crowd has not been the pandemic in the last 6 to 9 months. It's been the crime. Most of them just feel it's too dangerous. They're like, I'm not gonna come down there with the crime and all this bullshit that's going on. But I think with the masks coming off, okay, it's gonna have more people come here, and the more people that come here, the less easy it's going to be to get away with crime, the less the criminals are going to want to be around. The restaurants are going to be more open. There's going to be more people shopping. That's going to pull people from downtown, hearing that their friend was just downtown and wasn't as bad as they think it is. And now they're going to come downtown and they're going to fall back in love with the city. And the more they fall back in love with the city, like, hey, maybe we should get a place here. And the more they talk about, let's get a place here, that's when they start buying. And that's what happens. It's a domino effect. It's that simple. And I think it all starts with the mask coming off. The mask just came off. So I think that's going to be another big start, and why we're talking about this, of why the empty nester market is going to really come raging back. Are empty nesters typically downsizing? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. It's usually about a third of what they're used to. So that's the big thing that we have to have them wrap around. It's a different lifestyle. What are the best tips you have for empty nesters looking in Chicago? My best tip for you guys is know that you're not going to have as much space, and know that you're not going to have as much closets. Also know that there's going to be less people living there. You don't have to have your 5 kids living with you, okay? And that you're not using this property as much or as often as you would be, because you're supposed to be out. You know, like a lot of people think about the condo that they're going to buy like they think about the house. Like when you live in the house in the suburbs, you're almost never out. You're kind of just a homebody. You're living at home. The point of living in the city is going out in the city. The point is going out to restaurants, going out shopping, walking. You know, you don't have to drive everywhere. The mall isn't 17 minutes away. The mall is like 10, maybe 15 steps away, and it's just a different mindset. So when I talk to empty nesters and advice to give them, and just tell them that you have to realize that this is now a different lifestyle. It's like you're entering a different chapter in your lifetime. Okay. The kids are out of the house, and you now can be selfish again. For the last, 18, 19, maybe 20 years of life, you weren't able to be selfish. Now it's time to be selfish. Buy something you want to buy. Get what you want to enjoy. Go to where you want to go. You can do that again. And for parents out there, they may have had a different mindset for the last 20 years, and they haven't been able to think that way. So it's hard to get them to wrap their minds around kind of like how to think about buying these places. How are empty nesters different than in-town buyers? In-town buyers are buying this as a part-time place. They're looking at this as a place that, like, hey, when I come to Chicago, maybe 3, 6, 12 weeks out of the year total, I'll use this. So in-town buyers kind of look at this as like a hotel room. Okay, that's the best way to put it. Empty nester buyers look at this like their primary residence. Sure, they may only live here 6 months of the year, but this is where they're living. And where you're going to live and where you're going to park your bag for, because it's a hotel, is totally different. Do you get a lot of snowbirds buying in the city? It's a huge market. So most empty nesters, I would say the majority of empty nesters are snowbirds, meaning that they get a place here, Florida, Arizona, Texas, California, South Carolina, something like that. Okay. So it's more of like a 6 to 9 month out of the year place. And then that they have a second home that they kind of use as like an in-town in a warmer climate. What do empty nesters love about living in Chicago? They love the energy. They love the vibe. I mean, you have to remember, a lot of empty nesters have been living in the burbs in a quiet place where they hear the birds chirp and they don't see their neighbors, okay, for the past 20-something years. And they're moving downtown so that they can enjoy what the city has to offer. That means museums. That means theater. That means shopping. That means nightlife. That means restaurants. It means, walking out your door and just going for a walk and seeing what the city has to offer. You can't do that in the suburbs. And that's what they love. They miss living like that. Because you got to remember, most people, you kind of live your own life selfishly, enjoy what you want to do, kind of do it your way. And then you have kids and you move to the burbs and you kind of live the whole raise the kids route and do what the kids got to do and go where the kids got to go, their soccer games, all this other stuff. And then when the kids move out of the house, they don't have that stuff to kind of worry about anymore. And you kind of feel lost for a minute and saying like, well, how do I go back to what I like to do? And they have to kind of rediscover themselves. And that's why they come back to the city and they start understanding, the things that they used to love. And it's usually when they're younger and it's living in the city. And that's kind of, what empty nesters love about living downtown. Are empty nesters typically retired? I would say they're not retired. They're close to retirement. Okay. A lot of these people are people who have owned companies, are super high up at their work. In fact, a lot of them love it because now it's closer to where they work, because a lot of them have been commuting down to the city. So a big thing I get a lot of my empty nester clients telling me is like, wow, I'm gonna save hours off my life not driving into the city. And I've been doing that for the past 20 plus years. So they're more towards the tail end of the career. This is kind of like the last hurrah for them. Whereas when they moved out, they were just kind of climbing the ladder. Now they're kind of winding down and kind of like getting ready to figure out what they're going to do. And that's a big thing we talk about, because they say like, well, when I retire, is this going to be good for our lifestyle of where we want to go? And a lot of empty nesters travel. That's the other big thing, is that they're at the point in life where they're able to travel more and not have to worry about work as much. And that also means that they want less headache of their place. And that's why they typically, I'm not saying always, typically buy high rises, because they typically have less things to worry about in those types of buildings. What do they usually look for in city home? We talked about that. What are the top mistakes empty nesters make when they move to Chicago? I think a lot of people were kind of creatures of habit. So they think they want like a single family home, or they think that they want like a big townhome because they're used to kind of like living on their own. Or they think they want like a 3-unit building. And I get a lot of these ones. And then we go there. We'll go to like a 3-unit building, and they'll be in the second floor unit because like, wow, there's a second floor in Lincoln Park. And then we're sitting in there looking, and then all of a sudden you can hear the people stomping around above you. And like, well, who lives upstairs? I'm like, well, this place is 500, which means the place upstairs is probably like 750. And it's probably some kid who just graduated college, cashed in on his cryptocurrency, and, bought that place for $750. So, every now and then on a Tuesday at 3:30 in the morning, he's going to be throwing ragers up there that you're going to feel like you're living in a frat house. You're like, well, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to hear the people above me. And I'm like, well, listen, in a 3-unit building, a 3-6-unit building, I don't care what anybody tells you, you're always going to hear the people above you. They're like literally impossible to be soundproof. It's just not going to happen. I'm like, well, I don't want to hear anybody. I'm like, okay, well, then you're going to buy a high rise. Okay. And then we'll go look at homes. This is another big mistake. We'll go look at homes like I'm downsizing. I got 5,000 square feet and it's just too much space. Okay, so we go to a single family home and it's 4,200 to 4,600 square feet. And I'm always like, just out of curiosity, you said you want to downsize. Now I make more money if you buy this house, because I make, single family homes are super expensive. I'm like, but just tossing this out there, isn't this kind of against everything you said? You said you wanted less work, less maintenance in the house. You wanted less space. You said the stairs of your house killed you. This is 6 stories without an elevator. I'm like, this kind of seems like a lateral move, but you're just going from there to the city. And if that's what you want, I'll sell you whatever you want. But like, I try to tell people when they're buying, try to make them actually like critically think about what they're doing. And then when I put it in that perspective, like, shit, I didn't think about it like that. But again, it's because we're creatures of habit. It's just what they're used to. So you're literally taking somebody out of a mental state of where they've lived for, like I said, 10 to 30 years. And it's easy for us to kind of be like, you got to understand this is how it is, but you've been doing the same routine every single day for 30 years straight. It's kind of tough to get them to shake out of it. And most empty nesters, I'll tell you, most empty nester buyers take a very long time to buy. These aren't like my first time buyers buying a $500,000 place. We're like, honestly, a lot of people at this time of year, we're in spring season, they'll walk in and buy the first place they see. Like, yeah, you know what? This checks most of my boxes. I mean, this is like picking out like white paint. Like, it all kind of looks the same. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like, let's just buy this. Empty nesters, it takes them a very long time. Like, honestly, I have some empty nesters I work with maybe for 2 years before they pull the trigger. The good thing is they got big budgets. They don't really look at a ton. They're not down here looking at 30 places every single weekend. They're more or less will pop in once every, 3-ish weeks. We'll look at anywhere from 5 to 7 places. And they kind of do that for maybe a year or 2. On average, I would say most of my empty nesters take 3 to 6 months to buy, which is normally our normal buyers will take maybe 21 to 30 days to buy. But the reason they take longer is because they mentally have to kind of understand what they're doing. It's like they need to convince themselves that this is going to be okay. And after looking at a few, they kind of start to understand that. And we're totally okay with it, because I know it's like an exercise. I tell these people, it's like, some of these ones you're going to have to see to kind of understand. We know you're going to hate them. Like, I'll tell them right now, I'll be like, yeah, this is a place that you're never going to buy. You're never going to buy this. Like, I still want to see it. And like with some first time buyers, I might be like, this is just like a complete waste. But with the older clientele and the empty nesters, I know that we have to do this because they need to have the exercise, because they are older too, and they're more visual and they're used to doing exercises of like the mind, that they have to go there and be like, oh, now I know. Now I know why that's not for me. And then we use that as a basis point of why, like, next time they send me a place like that, I'm like, this is just like X place. So it's just, it can be a little bit confusing for empty nesters of figuring out where they want to live and what mistakes they make. But, it's just something that they have to keep doing to try to figure out where they want to be. How is the buying process different? We kind of talked about that. How do you know when it's time to downsize? I think most people figured out, pretty quickly that they need to downsize, but it takes them years to actually mentally do it. And usually what happens is it's the first year, once the kids are out, that they kind of realize that, like, wow, this is a lot of space. And as the next 2 to 3 years go, they start going back to the city and, going to dinners and kind of living life again, and then realizing that like we don't need this much space, and that's when the itch and bug hits to get a place here and a place in like Florida or something. Best advice for choosing the right area to live in Chicago: go to where you figure out what you like to do. You like to go to parks, you like to go to museums, you like going to restaurants, figure out what you like to do, and then buy a property that's close to it. That's it. What are some of the benefits of downsizing? I mean, there's a lot. Less maintenance. I mean, you've got a 5,000 square foot house on an acre lot. I mean, think about how much landscaping work you have to do. Think about like how much care it has to have. Think about how much maintenance that house has to take. You buy high rise. I mean, shit breaks on the inside, but you usually got an on-site engineer that'll take care of most of it. Like, you don't worry about anything with the exterior, but like literally anything with the exterior building. That's what you have a board for. I mean, every now and then you might have a special assessment, but upside is usually older people that got money. Not that you want to just throw it away, but like, you're not the one making the calls. You're not calling the handyman to come fix the roof. You're not making the calls to have the guy do the exterior maintenance. The best part about it is like you don't do anything. Let's see here. Is there a certain type of property that works best for empty nesters? We talked about that. High rises all day. It's not even close. Do empty nesters really save financially if they have high monthly assessments? It's a tough question because, again, it matters. I mean, a lot of my empty nesters, they may own like a $5 million place in Winnetka, and their taxes are $100,000. So most of these people own homes that are like $2 to $5 million bucks, and then they're buying a place in the city that's maybe 1.5. So like, and then the taxes are like maybe 3/4 of what they are there, and then the assessments make up some of the difference. But usually what they do is they cash out and they use that money to buy 3/4 of the place downtown, and then they take the rest of the money and then some savings and buy a place in Florida, Arizona. So they're saving, but they end up having 2 residents rather than 1. I'm not saying that's all of them, but I'll say the majority of people run into, they either downsize and get a place down here, and then they're eventually going to get one in like Florida, Arizona or something like that, or they buy a place down here and they already have made that purchase. So it's usually kind of like a two-play effect. So like financially speaking, they're usually spending a little bit more, but now they got 2 places rather than 1. Let's see here. Tips for empty nesters figuring out how much they should spend. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I always tell them to talk to their financial advisors, and most of these people are very well off. Most people that are empty nesters, they're buying downtown, they have more than 7 figures, substantially more than 7 figures in their bank account. So they're pretty financially savvy people. This isn't like their first rodeo where they're like, I don't understand how my money works. They're more or less like, they're not like very like budget, like strict. They're more or less like financially savvy in the sense of being like, okay, I know that if I go above 1.5 with $2,000 a month assessments and $30,000 in taxes, I won't be able to afford X amount in Florida, and to be where I want to be in Florida, I need to keep it here. So more or less, like my best financial advice for them is I always say like, make sure you talk to your accountant and your financial advisor and see like what our budget is to work with that's gonna make you comfortable with your expenses. And I gotta be honest with you, probably one of the best parts about empty nesters is like, there's really not that much talks of finances at all, because like they usually have them in order. Usually they come to me with like, they've already done the homework. All my first time buyers, we're doing that exercise together. So like, even though we may show more places to empty nesters, we don't have to have as many conversations about some of the other basics that we have to have first timers. This isn't the first place they bought. They're not like nervous about like, like having to buy a place with the financial responsibilities or understand their budget. It's more or less nervous about like how their lifestyle is going to change. So it's like kind of like more problems, but it's less problems. So they kind of equal each other out. What do empty nesters, or have you seen buyers downsize and regret their decision? Yes, all the time. I've had people buy single families or condos in like smaller buildings and realize that they don't want them. I've had some people buy too big of places and then we sell them and they get a smaller place. That's a big one actually, is that like they'll be like, I need a 4-bedroom, 3,500 square feet. And I mean, I'm in sales, so I make more money if you spend more money. So I'm always like, listen, like you could get this. This is great. Like I'll make more, but like realistically, do you really need this much more space? I mean, aren't we talking about downsizing? But a lot of them will do that, and then we end up selling that, and then they buy something smaller. So I mean, for us, it's great because we sold them to one place, and then we resell that place, and we get another sale. So it turns out to be 3 sales. But ultimately, the goal is to try to save people money. Ultimately, the goal is to make sure that they have a good experience. They don't have to go through that. But every now and then, we do see people make mistakes, and that's why I always tell people like really figure out what you want to do. And what you want to do with this lifestyle. Like, what's the goal to accomplish with this property? And we talk it out, and that's usually how we figure out, what it is that they want. And again, empty nesters take a while to buy a place. Like I have a lot of empty nesters on searches right now. They're just like looking. They'll look on a search for maybe a year. We won't even talk that much. Like I send them updates all the time. They kind of like ignore me. And then like out of nowhere, it'll be like Friday at 9 p.m. Like, hey, we decided we're coming downtown this weekend. Any chance we can get into a few properties, you know? And it'll be like a year I haven't heard from them. And that's just how empty nesters are. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that in a bad way. I'm just saying like that's the mentality of it because they're trying to figure out what it is that they want. But they also, a lot of people and anybody else, you know, that's watching this that's younger, your parents that aren't in that downsizing phase, like when they want to come downtown, like they're always worried about parking and like getting down here. And it's like this big, it's like a whole ordeal for them to come down. So when they do finally make the decision to come down, they want to try to make the most of it because they want to come back here because they're so used to the suburb mentality. Are empty nesters concerned about extra space for visiting kids? Absolutely. That's a huge one. So they want to be able to like, well, hey, if Johnny and Jill come in for the weekend, we want to make sure that we have space for them. Or a lot of them are even further down the line that, hey, when Johnny and Jill come down with their kids, so they're grandparents at this point. So they want to make sure that the grandkids can have space. So like we have a lot of empty nesters where it's like they need to have a place with a pool because their kids have kids and they want their kids to be able to play in the pool. So like there's certain wants that they can't budge on. Like that's another thing about empty nesters is that there's certain intangibles that we can't change. Like I got some people who won't go without a pool because their kids want to have a pool. I got some people who won't go without a doorman because they're worried about safety and want to have like all the conveniences. Like there's a lot of empty nesters that have like hard, you know, boxes that have to be checked. And if they're not checked, then they're not buying at all. Is it a best time of year for empty nesters to try and buy? I'll be honest with you. I think I see the most empty nesters in the fall. You know, I would say a lot of them get through the spring and then out of the woodworks, their kind of work is slower. So that's when they start to kind of look at buying. So like I would say the fall is when I see the most of them. The second most is like literally right now. And that's why we're doing this. This is the second busiest time I see empty nesters because I'm also thinking that this summer is going to be crazy with empty nesters. I think this summer is going to be really slow in general. I think this summer we're going to see 50% less traffic. I think first-time buyers are going to be completely dead by the summer. I think right now the main driving factor of this ship that's making this market great is first-time buyers. But I think over the summer, first-time buyers are going to be traveling, honeymoons, you know, weddings, you know, just a lot going on. But I think a lot of empty nesters are going to be people who've cashed out and are sitting on a pile of cash and, you know, the stock market and inflation, all this stuff's going on. Like, I don't know what to do. Well, let's get our place downtown. So I think like late spring, summer, and fall is when we see the most empty nesters. Best tips for empty nesters starting the home buying process in Chicago. I would say think about what it is you're trying to accomplish with this goal. Write it out. Write your pros and cons of what you want. You know, what's important to you. Going out, lifestyle, restaurants, ball games, whatever it is. And then what are things that you didn't like about having a single family home that's making you want to downsize, you know? And then we look at that list and then we determine which area would be the best fit based off of that list. And then we determine what type of property it is that you need to buy from there. And again, the great thing about empty nesters is that they're not really in a time crunch, so it's not great for realtors because we make money if you buy, so that people are always like mad sometimes about that. I'm like, I don't give a shit how long it takes you. The biggest thing for you, don't rush into it. Figure out what your wants are, what your must and can't haves are, and then we just narrow it down from there. And then it's just a simple process of an exercise of looking at the places and figuring out which one's the best fit for this new lifestyle that you're going to have. That's it, guys, for this episode of Empty Nesters. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.